we just witnessed one of the best FNCS finishes ever. In this video, I'm going to break down the final 3 games from Peterbot, Ritual and Cold, and how they were able to overcome and beat Aegis, Acorn and Poyo, who had a 90-point lead going into the final game by just a single elim. These guys pulled off an absolute hype masterclass in this last game, and there is a ton of things to learn about how they were able to win this entire tournament. I'm going to break down all of it for you in this one video. Please leave a like, and let's get straight into this with this crazy off-spawn 3v3 and how Peterbot was able to win it. And this is exactly how close this final 3v3 off-spawn. These guys have been landing in here, beefing with each other the whole season, but it all comes down to this one moment, and I think Poyo, Aegis and Acorn got a little bit nervous despite having a 90-point lead. Look what happens. Peterbot doesn't 50-50 the chest where he can get double stacked, doesn't go for the back where he wouldn't be able to help his teammates. Instead, he heads straight downstairs and gets a green auto. At the same time, Ritual and Cold both double stack and 50-50 Acorn, forcing Acorn to have no loot and try to run away. And Ritual really smartly here decides to block off the angle, so Poyo is basically useless because he's got full box, and Peterbot gets the knock onto his former teammate of Poyo. Then Aegis, who dropped a 40 bomb in FNCS, he went absolutely crazy, had the most elims. Even though he's got a gold auto shotgun and a chug jug and builds, he goes down to a pickaxe right here as these guys swarming on him. And now it's all down to Acorn trying to run away and trying to survive. All he needs to do is survive here, get the reboot off, potentially squeeze out some placement, make it hard for Peterbot to actually close the gap in this final game. But this is the most unlucky moment of the entire tournament, in my opinion. He manages to get away, hide between these rocks without getting seen by Peterbot, and then look what happens. Pete starts leaving the POI, trying to figure out where Acorn's gone, and he goes to grab this blob as he comes over, and look what happens. Just as he goes to grab the blob, looks to his left, Acorn's hiding here, and he gets spotted out. If Acorn could have survived right there and not get spotted, there was a high chance he could have played Storm, gone for the reboot, and got himself into a winning position later. However, it was not meant to be, and now it comes down to this final game. Peterbot needs a win with around 4 more kills to even have a chance of actually overtaking Acorn in first. Now, because these guys really need to win this final game, they make a very risky play of going for a mid-game Spire that most teams are afraid of going for, because it leaves you so vulnerable to third parties and other players sneaking on you. However, for these guys, they have full confidence in going for it, and they get rewarded with some absolutely insane loot. A gold outlaw, loads of spare chug jugs, and most crucially right here, they get the shockwave pistol, which is going to be a game winner in a second. Now, from this point on, all they need to do is manage their surge properly, make sure they have good rotations, as well as try to get as many S chests as possible so they can get triple cape for endgame. Although the main reason these guys were in such a game-winning position in this final game came down to how good of a clutch Cold pulled off in game number 11. So let's go take a look at that. Now, just for some extra context before we get to this absolutely insane 1v3 by Cold, this is exactly what happened beforehand. Peterbot changed up their playstyle completely, and they started going into Storm. They land up boxcars, they ignored the Spire, and they head straight into Storm, knowing that Acorn, Aegis and Poyo would be getting this bunker right here. Unfortunately, no, because of how laggy the servers are with 80 people up, they literally just blank all of these shots as this team flies in. They don't even hit a single bullet or get a single lick of damage on this full trio as they glide straight past them, just because of how laggy the servers are. Now, because these guys knew they were going to get W keyed and they were going to get pushed around the map by Peterbot, they end up leaving the coin behind until disaster strikes and Ritual gets 3-2-1. Ritual gets 3-2-1 and insta goes down. Then as they go for Ritual's reboot card, the exact same thing happens to Peterbot. He gets 3-2-1 by another trio, and now these guys are completely scuffed, and Acorn is going to run away with the lead. Now, Cold is left in this really difficult situation where he's getting pushed by a full trio, and he's very low on mats as well as whites. Just as Peterbot gets rebooted, this team knows they've got an opportunity to have a fair 1v3 against Cold. However, they don't realize that they're pushing one of the best fighters in Fortnite's history. Watch exactly how Cold wins this. First thing he does is he makes sure to stay crouched and wait for one of these guys to get within 1 tile radius of him. That gives him a fair 1v1 where he can try to outplay the other player. As soon as this guy gets onto his edits right here as he's trying to play time and trying to lurk, look what he does. Sits all the way back, jumps up, hits 115, and immediately goes for the full box. Gets the double edit to block this guy in. Other guy starts panicking, tries to escape out, and Cold's got him full box and immediately dips back down and plays this really smart peek. If Rain Aaron was to try to jump in right here, he would have a very easy time of actually taking him out because of that smart peek that he's doing at the back. Then Cold does some really nice box fighting skills. First thing he does is he gets himself up to this layer right here and gets the wall low while sitting really far back. This makes it impossible for him to get edited on and take any damage. Then all he does, nice little little top right hand peek after he takes the wall, jumping peek into two of them and actually hits both of them right there, and then another top right hand peek, literally a perfect top right hand peek completely behind the edit, and takes out the second player and hits the last guy down to 1 HP. Now at this point, this guy completely starts panicking and has no idea how to deal with Cold pressuring him. And all Cold does is stall, keep his crosshair on the enemy, and ends up even using his cape here to just stall time and make this guy panic about what to do. And just like that, Cold is 1v3'd with literally 0 damage taken with an outlaw shotgun, which is absolutely ridiculous. Unfortunately, because of this double reboot really deep in Storm, these guys were completely scuffed, and it's going to come down all to game number 12, where they're 90 points below Poyo in first. Now, just because Peterbot has managed to kill Acorn, Aegis, and Poyo does not mean that this tourney is over. There is still another team ahead of them on the leaderboard at this point. Bolt, Canada, and Rapid that is somewhere in this lobby. And a really nice thing that Peterbot does in a second here is he spots these guys rotating after he does this very, very nice launch pad dash tech in a sec. So you can see launches onto the dash and actually sends himself flying, so he doesn't have to pull his glider until he's close to the ground. This allows him a really, really good rotate, and he spots Canada's trio rotating, and he knows exactly who that is because all the coaches are sitting and actually checking skins in the game. They know who's who in the game, and he builds this really, really big base. This is very, very nice because it allows him to get Surge as well as to grief Canada in a second here. So now as Canada starts rotating in and actually building over the top of this other team trying to fight for Surge, these guys spot it and instantly start spamming them and trying to get them out of the lobby. Now the main issue, the reason they have to do this unfortunately, is the fact that if they let Canada get to endgame and he was to secure like a top 3 or a top 2, even if these guys got the win, they probably wouldn't actually have enough points to win the entire tournament. They needed to get Canada's team out of here, which is exactly what they managed to do by spraying over. They spot them all getting knocked in the feed, but they don't get too greedy on this, which is really, really important. Instead, as soon as they realize they're getting knocked in the feed and they're probably completely griefed and out the game, what they do is focus on rotate and continuing to stay ahead of all the other teams. Pete keeps refarming the whole way throughout this rotate, and they also just make sure to use as many dashes as possible so they can stay ahead of the other teams. And for the majority of these guys' mid-game rotates, all they're doing is just dashing and then boxing up over and over while trying to refarm. So they basically just dash to refarm over and over, making sure they're all staying super stacked on mats and also staying super healthy as well, not risking rotating while being 1 HP. However, in a second, they end up running into Clix, Eomzo, as well as Higgs, and these guys were playing basically to grief the entirety of day 2. I'm not really sure why, I'm not going to get into it too much, but there was a particular mid-game fight where these guys fully keyed Peterbot knowing it was Pete, as well as in the final endgame, Clix was trying to grief Peterbot and actually said it on stream. So let's go take a look at the 3v3 that these guys had and take a look at why Peterbot was able to win it and cement himself as the FNCS winner of this cup. Alright, this fight from Clix's team versus Peterbot was literally all Peterbot. Take a look at exactly what he does. As they're getting pushed, as Ritual gets cracked and left down to low HP, Peterbot makes a load of space and does a really smart play right here, waiting. He knows Clix is going to edit. He holds the stair edit, waits for Clix to come close. As soon as he opens the edit, insta 170 bang as soon as he sprays, and suddenly the fight's momentum is completely changed. Eomzo tries to keep up with the pressure, but the thing is, when you're in a 2v3 trying to pressure, you're just going to get hit down to low HP as well, and suddenly the fight is completely turned on its head, and Peterbot is the one being aggressive and the one W king. All Pete does is sits back, plays a smart angle, and as soon as these guys start making mistakes and going into builds that aren't theirs, look what he does. Blocks off one of them, spots Eomzo isolated trying to heal by himself for some reason, and then ends up taking him out, and suddenly this 2v3 is just completely unwinnable. Cold wins the Angel versus Higgs right there, and Clix is left in a 1v3, and these guys are genuinely unkillable when it comes to a mid-game fight. All they do is hold, make sure to get the piece onto Clix, and get straight in, and there's nothing you can do as 3 of them run at him. Alright, now back into game number 12. These guys instantly realized that zone pull was max. Keep in mind they landed down here at Demons, and the endgame is literally worst case scenario up at first order with another max pull, and Peterbot decides to instantly rotate rather than staying backside next to Clix, who's trying to spray them and grief them a little bit more. Another very, very important thing that they do right here is they don't faff around too much. As soon as they get a little bit of surge and realize they're going to be good for this next zone, they just continue to rotate over and over, constantly pausing and actually reusing their blobs over and over to actually make sure they've always got dashes. And now they make the play that won them this entire game, which is actually trying to be the first team up for taking height right here. As you can see, they mark it, they figure out that's a perfect spot to be. What does Cole do? He capes straight up and actually takes height and establishes it for them on this side of zone. And all Pete needs to do is just crank up, make sure they don't take too much damage as they get up here, and they're in this stalemate versus this height in the center of zone. Now, this is really, really important, is where this height team is they can't actually pull the zone where they're at. So all Peterbot does is make sure they know that they can't actually try to take kite from them. So what does he do? He gets the shockwave pistol from earlier and then just starts spamming it over and over and actually griefing his team out. And this pistol is so broken. Every single first bullet sends the team flying out, and they realize there's no chance they can play height. And these guys very, very luckily pull zone down here towards the 8th. And this is one big thing that I've been talking about, throughout this season, is basically the zone probability for these guys is going to be much higher that it pulls down here compared to pulling up here, just because the end game obviously can't end out in the ocean. So they realize that, and they bank on the fact they're going to pull zone, which is exactly what happens. And now they're in a perfect position to chop out this other team's height, as well as establish height going into first moving. Now at this point, this does look like an unlosable game, but I have seen so many pros throw just because they don't do the simple fundamentals that Peterbot does right here. He realizes they're getting chopped out, and he makes sure to fully secure. He goes super wide, make sure they're double connected in 2 different places, as you can see. So now if anybody wants to chop them out, they'd really have an easy time of noticing it, as well as countering it, which is exactly what Peterbot's going to do. He plays around on the mid ground for a second here, just spraying, spamming people with the pistol, and now they get a first moving pull straight back across their high ground that they've already established up here. Now these guys didn't actually play height too much in this entire FNCS, but when they actually take it in this final game, they play it literally perfectly, like genuinely a height master, guys. First thing they've got going is, of course, the shockwave pistol to grief people on second height. Cold is making sure nobody's chopping, nobody's lurking, and especially that double connection point makes it very easy for him to figure out what's going on. He's basically just checking the backside, making sure they're not getting flanked while crouching, and that allows him a nice angle to look at people front. And this also allows him to communicate to Ritual that he can go for a connect, and he's actually safe to do so. Nobody's looking up from front side. Now these guys are super well established. They're double connected backside and at a midpoint right here, and all they need to do is just stay up and keep spamming everybody else below them, and they should be on to actually get the win. However, they're going to run to a big issue here. They don't have enough elims at this point. They need to get 7 kills, so 4 more kills in this endgame, if they want to overtake Acorn, Poyo, and Cold. If they want to overtake Acorn, Poyo, and Aegis in first place. Now, as we come to third moving right here, these guys are absolutely chilling on height. They make a smart call when they realize zone's probably going to pull back right here. It's quite unlikely it pulls, up to the north. So they've realized it's going to pull back. However, unfortunately, one of them builds in front of Peterbot in a second right here, as you can see. They're all chilling up on height. They've got complete control of this game. Peterbot starts spraying the second height team, and somebody, I think it's Ritual, places a cone right in front of his shot, and that sends them both launching off height. Peterbot gets sent backside, and Ritual actually gets sent down to mid ground, and now he's one above this other height team that wants to go for it in a second here. So as you can see, that's exactly what happens. They get chopped out, Peterbot dashes to reconnect, actually regroup with his teammates, and these guys decide to just leave height for a second, even though they got a little bit of damage on the height team, because the other team is triple cranking up with the birds, which is very, very hard to stop. So what they do, they pause, both all get all back to full HP, and they start using the shockwave pistol on the height team. So that exact mid-game confidence of actually W-king the height team is going to allow them an easy time of retaking height. As you can see, King tries to connect it back in the storm, and all Peterbot does is looks, sends him out, and he's forced to use the bird, otherwise he would die to storm right there, and actually no chance that he can take height. Now, just as they predicted, zone ends up pulling straight back. However, as I said, they're going to have a tough time of actually getting elims right here, because everybody is fighting inside the cave, as you can see. So this means that they have to be very aggro, trying to get a couple remaining elims in a second. Peterbot connects to some old builds in the storm, as well as they get into final zone right here, and they need to start being aggressive onto Clix's team on the mid ground. Now, at this point, these guys still need to find 4 more elims to even have a chance of winning this game. Just take a look at what Cold does. He gets straight into this absolute mess and just non-stop shoots his gun over and over, and somehow doesn't die in that cluster fight right there. Then Ritual gets a kill from the back, very well played, gets a cape as well, and heal off potential. And now these guys realize that they've got the win secured with the amount of heals and the cape on Ritual. So all they need to do is keep him alive while trying to take out the remaining players in the lobby. So what do? All 3 of them stand on height together, keep their shotguns out, and basically push off Iomzo since he can't land on top of them. And now they start lowering down. Watch what Peterbot does. Hits a nice shot onto Diminished, nice jumping right and peek right there as he takes him out, as well as he hits a nice shot onto Iomzo twice in a row, which basically secures the extra elim since Iomzo doesn't have heal off at this point in the game. Clix dies, Peterbot goes down to Storm as well, and all Ritual does is just secure the heal off win with the cape as well as all of the chugs, and these guys just barely, by the skin of their teeth, get a 7-kill win. If Peterbot didn't hit a couple of those shots in the endgame onto Iomzo, and Iomzo just bled out to Storm, then they would not have won Grants. That was how close it was in this final 3v3 at the end.